my talk. I'm going to hand it over to Don at this point.
Long day for all of you, I know, and I'm going to try to be concise and direct in this presentation. I brought about 50 copies. I thought it would be plenty, but it may not be, of really 4 articles. It's a packet with 4 articles that really are going to cover more detail what I'm talking about tonight. If there aren't enough around there, I'll put out a pad or something. If you want to leave an email address, I can get you this, or maybe they can be posted online. I don't know. Is that possible? And if not, I'll get them to you somehow. But what I want to do is really make a point and really pick up sort of where Jim left off. There are financial issues that one of the keystones of thinking about the future for your child is to make the best of whatever you have in your own family financial resources. But it's only the starting point. And I really want to talk about all the other things you need to consider beyond that, whether you have substantial assets or you have no assets at all. The issues for you are still the same. You still want to do whatever you can to make the future the best it possibly can be for your child. Now, given the demands that you face every day, the demands for immediate action and response, and just listening to the questions and the issues that you were facing in the first part of this meeting, just really reinforce that problem that you deal with. To deal with all of the immediate issues that must be dealt with, you really have very little time to do anything else. And the process that I'm talking about, the sort of long-term planning, try to put your plans for your child in the perspective of a longer-term, bigger picture. It's something that you just have to step back from and exercise as a separate activity. And you just have to set the time, or a little bit of time aside to do it, and just think about things in a little different way beyond the immediate. So really, I'm talking about a number of things here beyond, well, let's start with the individual. I think that's the best place to start, really. This person that we're talking about, the son or daughter with special needs. That person himself brings not only needs to the table, but strengths, relationships. Fast. This way. Oh. I'm going to be close. Okay. We need to see you better. Okay. But I'm looking in that direction. Okay. So, starting with the individual, you know, this person-centered approach, child-centered approach, everybody uses it in education. We really ought to use it in law and legal planning as well. That's the beginning of the circle. Think about the strengths of your child, what your child may bring to relationships that he has. I'm not only talking about strengths in terms of potential earning capacity, but just strengths that he can bring to the table in his roles with a family and support of other people, in the glue that he can provide to a family situation. Positive elements in the life of a child with special needs. We really have to start with. Beyond that, let's make the circle a little bit bigger and look at the family. And here, when we talk about resources, we can talk about financial resources, but also human resources. Not in the job sense, but in the sense of the people and supports that are around your child that can be helpful in the future in providing support. The family is critical, neighbors are critical, friends, church. It's the circle of people. Again, we're not talking about money. And when we're thinking about planning for a child, we really need to take into account the strengths that we can find in those human resources. Now, beyond your own finances, beyond the child and the family, we need to think about other ways that we can bring benefits to bear for the individual. And here, we really get into the whole sphere of government benefits. Talking about really many kinds of benefits. Part of the paper goes into some detail on a number of these. The most well-known ones, supplemental security income and mass health, but also there's a fair amount of detail on a number of other programs that are less well utilized. Here, the planning issue, and really, this is reflected partly in one of the comments. I was thinking of one of the comments that people made before about feeling that child was being molded, his needs were being molded to fit into an existing program rather than the other way around. And with the benefit programs, we run into the same sort of problem. We don't want to characterize the child as disabled in a particular way just for the sake of benefits. We want to try to find benefits that match. We want to try to be flexible in how we use them and access them. We don't want the child's life as an adult to be completely circumscribed and controlled by the nature of his benefits. We see this problem very often in the context of work. Now, many people with disabilities are ready and able and willing to work to some extent. Some cannot, but many can and many want to. And I often run into a situation where there's a fear that I want to work, but if I work, I'm going to lose my benefits. I can't earn enough to live on my own. I can't live enough without the benefits. I need the benefits. So what do? The safest course is not to work. The person feels bad about themselves. It hurts their own image of themselves. They're feeling that they're not living up to what they can do. I find that there are many, many programs within the Social Security Administration, within Mass Health, that are really geared to providing incentives for people to work. They've changed the terminology now. It's work supports. These are ways that you can have your benefits, but work as well. There may be some impact from it, there may be some reduction in benefits, but overall the combination of work and benefits is a much better situation for the individual than benefits alone. There are 4 articles that I sort of pushed together into this booklet. The 4th article is really this one on work and work supports. My thought in assembling the packet was that it provides first a picture of how to plan overall for a son or daughter with special needs. This involves the use of trusts and wills, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. The second part deals with benefits, definitions of benefits. I call it a glossary, sort of a dictionary of benefits, and also an extensive discussion of guardianship. The third has to do with the transition years, the 3rd article. And let me focus on that as well tonight to some extent. By transition, I'm really talking about the period roughly from 16 to 24, where we're beginning to do serious planning about post-special education, where the whole process, the 688 process, the transition process is beginning in earnest. We know that the child will be leaving special education either on high school graduation or at age 22. And we need to plan for that transition into the adult world. Transition involves many different aspects. One is the fact that the individual is no longer a child in the eyes of the law. The individual is an adult. The individual is considered, as far as the law is concerned, to be able to make the important decisions that are necessary for his life course. That a child may have very significant special needs doesn't change that basic approach of the law. As a parent, you have authority for decision-making on behalf of your children under age 18. Somewhere between 12 and 17, you may begin to feel that this is irrelevant. You may have legal rights to control, but in actuality, you don't. The child will do what the child will do. You provide what guidance you can, what support and counseling you can, but as a practical matter, the child makes decisions on his own. But at age 18, even if the child is not able to make or communicate decisions, the law says that something changes. You can't, as a matter of parent authority make decisions for him any longer. So at age 18, we need to make a decision about how to deal with this situation. For many people with special needs, turning 18, the fact that they are legally able to make decisions is okay. They may have special needs, they may understand the world imperfectly, but they are in programs, they're with supportive family members, they have counselors, they come to people for guidance, and it continues to be appropriate for them to be making decisions on their own. For some, however, there is really no or very limited capacity to either to make decisions or to communicate decisions. Making decisions involves understanding things that are going on around. It involves being able to take in information, remember information, remember past experiences, apply past experiences to things that are going on in your life now, being able to maintain a steady course, making a decision and being willing to stick with it even against short-term obstacles that might get in the way. Not be swayed by the moment. Those are all aspects of making decisions. It's not clinical, it's sort of practical. Communicating decisions usually involves speech. It involves people telling you something and you communicating back to them that this is the decision you've made. If you are unable to communicate decisions, then the decision process can't be left to you as a practical matter. People won't know what to do. Doctors won't know what treatment to provide, what medication is acceptable to them. Many people have some impairment in communication, but with care and with skill and with patience, we can communicate with them. A person with cerebral palsy, a person with severe speech and language problems may have great difficulty communicating, and we may have great difficulty understanding. But for many people, there is the capacity there underlying that. And it becomes our responsibility to accommodate. You hear this word all the time in education law and discrimination law. Employers need to accommodate their jobs to the capacities and limitations of an employee with a disability. And we need to accommodate our processes by which we make decisions, whether it's in IEP meetings or staffings at a hospital on treatment plans. We need to accommodate to the needs of people whose ability to communicate is limited. We know there are many other ways that we can help people communicate and understand. Sometimes people have a problem participating in decisions because they lack information. They lack training. They don't know what's involved in making a decision or what a decision really means. They don't understand that they have the right to say yes or no or what the result of that is. They may fear that by saying no, they're going to be denied service or denied help. People need education and counseling and support in situations like this to allow them to participate as much as they can. This, I think, is really the critical issue that we face as people grow through these years. It's how much weight, how much confidence we're going to place in them and their ability to make decisions on their own, and how are we going to make them, their ability to function in this way, improve over their early adult years. Another issue in these transition years has to do with benefits. Some benefits aren't available to children at all under age 18. Childhood disability benefits from Social Security is one of those. Disability insurance benefits itself is another. The eligibility standards for some programs change at age 18. Supplemental security income is the key one. Prior to age 18, the income and assets of the parents are counted as well as those of the child in determining eligibility. And very often this leads to the child not being eligible for benefits because of the assets and earnings of the parent. At age 18, even if the child is still at home, still in care, the child becomes eligible for supplemental security income on his own, if he meets the disability standard that applies to adults. The rules around mass health, around Medicaid, also change at age 18 in kind of complicated ways. But in many respects, the individual at age 18 is much more eligible, has much more access to mass health services than the younger child, at least by reason of disability. So benefits is the second area that's very important in these transition years. The third has to do with the agencies with which he deals as a person with special needs. You're dealing with primarily with the special education entitlement in this context. You're also dealing now with mass health and other agencies. But the focus, unless there are very severe medical needs, the focus usually of governmental involvement for people under 22 is the educational entitlement. The law is very broad, special education and related services, and Massachusetts is among the states more generous than most in what's provided in that span of support. In any case, you have the advantage of special education being what the law calls an entitlement. What that means is if you can demonstrate a need, it's within the range of the law, the city or town has to provide the service. There was a question earlier about monitor on an after-school program. And the response was, the appropriate one legally, was that if the monitor is spelled out as an educational need on the IEP, then we have to provide it. If we're not providing it, we get that fixed. That whole structure of entitlements, as hard as it is to deal with, and as many arguments as you have with it, really dissolves at age 18. At age 18, there are other agencies that will be involved. At age 22, whenever your child finishes school, other agencies will become involved. Maybe the Department of Developmental Services, used to be called the Department of Mental Retardation. Could be the Department of Mental Health. Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission, Commission for the Blind. Those are the kind of the key ones for adult services in Massachusetts. Those are not entitlement programs. They're programs which a demonstration of need is required. You have to show that you have a developmental disability or an intellectual disability, or that you meet the blindness standards for the Commission for the Blind. But that just gets you in the door. It doesn't get you any service. Beyond that, services on a year-to-year basis depend on what the legislature provides. The result is that there are waiting lists and frustrations. Even in the face of very clear demonstrated need for a service, you don't necessarily get it. I think one of the most important things I think I could try to get across tonight in thinking about long-term is that with your child, as an adult, entering that system, there are things which you really can and have to begin doing far in advance of that to really try to prepare the ground so that you and your child will be able to reconnoiter and survive in that environment as best you can. You have to learn. You have to understand what the programs are about. You have to become involved with them as early as you can. The Department of Developmental Services will have very little interest in your child who may have an intellectual disability, but while he is still a child, that agency is going to look to the Boston Public Schools as being the responsible agency. But they do provide some services. They provide respite. They provide some what they call case management services. They have workshops. They have workshops like this. They have active area offices that have a lot of things going on. And I think if your child is in that mode where you think that this may be the agency with which you'll have to deal as an adult, it really will be advantageous to you to try to involve yourself in as many ways as you can, as early as you can. You want to be in their stream. You want to be in their vision, their stream of activity. And the more you can do that now, the more likely you'll have an easier time of it later. You want to be recognized by them. You want them to know your child and to know you. You know, I've done this in 4 nights. I could just go on and on. Why don't, I think what might be best, particularly given the hour, you know, is just step back a little bit and take questions, you know, and see if there's some discussion that people want to have about any specific issues. Maybe Jim, you want to come up too? We can talk either about financial issues or about benefits or about things like trusts and wills, guardianship, benefits in the context of work, you know, any of those kinds of topics.